The last one served. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, an elegant envelope with gold trim that stood out among the bills and junk mail. I looked at it curiously as I prepared my morning coffee, that ritual I've performed every day for 40 years. My fingers, slightly trembling with age, opened the envelope carefully. Richard and Jennifer cordially invite you to their wedding. Saturday, June 15th. Pine Ridge Country Club. Dress code formal. I read the invitation several times. My son was getting married, and I was finding out through a card. No phone call, no visit, just an elegant paper with gold lettering. Cordially invite you, it said, as if I were a distant acquaintance, not the mother of the groom. I placed the invitation on the kitchen table next to the unpaid bills, and stared out the window. My 67 years weighed on my shoulders, but not as heavily as the silence in this house I'd maintained with such effort for decades. I'd been an English teacher at a public high school my entire career. When James, my husband, passed away, leaving me alone with Richard at just 12 years old, I took on both roles. I worked double shifts, graded papers until dawn, saved every dollar so Richard could attend good schools, have brand-name clothes, go to the summer camps he wanted. Richard is now 35, an executive at a tech company, living in an exclusive suburb of Boston, with Jennifer, an interior designer. A different world from my small apartment in the old neighborhood. I looked at the calendar hanging on the kitchen wall. 3 months until the wedding. 3 months to find an appropriate dress, to mentally prepare myself to fit into an environment where I always felt out of place. I picked up my phone and dialed Richard's number. 3 rings, 4. Hi, Mom. His voice sounded distant, as if he was busy with something more important. Richard, I received the invitation to your wedding. Oh, yeah. Jennifer handled sending those out. You'll be able to make it, right? Of course I wouldn't miss it. I was thinking maybe I could help with something, perhaps prepare some appetizers or… That's not necessary, Mom. Jennifer's parents have hired a complete catering service. The venue is exclusive. They don't allow outside food. I understand. I paused. What about a gift? What would you like? Don't worry about that. Just come on Saturday before 5 and wear something appropriate. No need to bring anything. The call ended before I could say goodbye. I sat staring at the phone in my hand, feeling that familiar weight in my chest. That sensation that appears every time I speak with my son, of being a burden, an uncomfortable reminder of a past he'd rather forget. That night, I took out my old piggy bank, where I kept the dollars I saved from my pension. It wasn't much, but for months, I'd been saving to fix the bathroom leak. However, now I had a more important purpose, not to embarrass my son at his wedding. During the following month, I visited several stores. Finally, I found an emerald green dress, elegant and modest, at a boutique where I spent almost all my savings. When I looked in the mirror at the store, for the first time in a long time, I didn't see a retired old teacher, but an elegant woman with dignity. In May, I found beige pumps with a stable heel, which I bought on installment. Then I went to the hair salon, where they freshened up my gray hair with a stylish cut. Looking at myself in the mirror, I thought, I'm not inferior to others. I'm just from a different world, but I am a woman. On the wedding day, I woke up at 6 in the morning. I made coffee, set multiple alarms just to make sure I wouldn't be late. The dress hung in the closet like a symbol. I put it on carefully, looking at myself in the mirror. A stranger, clean, proud, not young but authentic. The bus ride to the country club took a long time. Heat, dust. I arrived early and immediately knew I didn't belong. Everything was foreign to me. Gleaming cars, champagne bottles that cost what I paid in rent, rehearsed smiles for photos, and my son at the entrance in his tuxedo, his styled hair, his confident posture, laughing with his future father-in-law. I approached. Richard saw me and his smile faltered for a second. Mom, you came. I did, I replied, straightening his tie as I used to when he was a boy heading to school. He stepped back slightly. You look fine, he said after a long pause. Next to him stood William, Jennifer's father, who extended his hand. Susan, a pleasure. Richard has told us about you. I'm his mother, I said. I work at an insurance company, just a regular operator. Today I'm just the mother of the groom. He nodded and turned back to his conversation with friends. Once again, I stood beside them, but invisible. The banquet hall was spacious, bright, white tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, waiters in gloves. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything foreign to me. I approached the seating chart and found my card, table 7, right against the wall, facing the doors where dishes came out. The other tables were closer to the center, to Richard, to Jennifer. Table 1, Jennifer's parents and their friends. Table 2, Richard's college friends with their wives. Table 3, Jennifer's colleagues. And so on, in descending order. I was at the end, sitting with people who were clearly also obligation invites. An elderly woman with a hearing aid, a couple in uncomfortable suits, and a woman who turned out to be Jennifer's second cousin. "Are you Richard's mother?" she asked. "Yes, Susan. Margaret, pleased to meet you. May I sit with you? This is all too fancy for my taste." I nodded, feeling a bit better. At least someone else didn't belong in this glossy world. "You must be so proud of your son," she continued. "Of course. He's achieved everything on his own. This is his day." I tried to smile. Everything seemed right. The banquet, the music, the decoration. But inside, I felt like a hunched child who had been invited to the house, but not to the table. While guests congratulated the newlyweds, Richard went around the tables, approaching each one, joking, hugging, laughing, nodding in gratitude. I sat and waited. He approached every table, except mine. I told myself, he's saving me for last. He's busy. He's shy after all. I am his mother. It will be a special moment. But time passed. The music grew louder. The guests livelier. And I still sat there waiting. At some point I realized he wasn't coming. The waiters began serving food. First table 1, then 2, 3, 4. At our table, silence, empty plates. I tried to maintain my composure. Finally, a young waiter, clearly nervous, approached our table. "Sorry, there's been a setback in the kitchen. The food is still being prepared. Just a moment more, and it will be ready." 20 minutes passed, then 30. People at other tables ate, laughed, raised their glasses. Richard sat next to Jennifer, whispering something in her ear. She laughed, looking at him. At last, they brought the food. They set a plate in front of me. The salmon was cold, the asparagus wilted, the potato pale with a film of grease. They were leftovers, actual leftovers. "This is outrageous," Margaret whispered, looking at her equally cold portion. "It's okay," I said quietly, and raised my fork. "I'm used to this, used to being last, used to eating what's left, used to not complaining." But then I heard my son's voice. He wasn't whispering, he was speaking loudly. Tables nearby could clearly hear him. He was talking to Jennifer. "Look, they finally served her," he said, with a smirk. "She's used to eating life's leftovers. It's fine for her." Jennifer laughed lightly, musically. Behind her, others, their friends, their wives. Someone covered their mouth with their hand, but was still laughing. Their laughter spread across the hall like ripples on water. I put down my fork. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't even looking in their direction. I just listened. And then quietly I said, "It turns out I don't eat leftovers. I just live on them." Margaret looked at me in shock. "Him? Seriously?" "Apparently." Then Richard stood up and began giving his official speech. He thanked Jennifer's parents, her friends, the organizers, the waiters, even the DJ. Not a word about me. I watched him, my son, smiling, speaking confidently, fluently. He was happy, and in his happiness, there was no place for me. As the hall applauded, I felt something switch off inside me. It didn't break, it didn't crack, it simply went away, gently, like a light bulb that goes out, but no longer flickers. Then came the dances. The first dance, the dance with the father of the bride, the bride's dance with her mother. I waited, I believed, I had even practiced at home. I had chosen a song. He never approached me, didn't even look in my direction. I sat there with my empty plate, in the dress I had chosen with such hope, in shoes that hurt my heels, with my well-arranged hair so he would be proud. And then I understood. This wasn't anger or resentment. It was inner silence, when you no longer expect anything. "Are you okay?" Margaret asked. "I'm perfectly fine," I said. Calm. And it was true. I stood up carefully, smoothed my dress, went to the coat check, picked up my purse, and left. No one noticed. No one stopped me. Not even him. There I stood at the entrance. Behind me, the noise, the music, the joy. In front of me, the evening, the humid air, the solitude. But I didn't feel pain. "You're leaving?" Margaret had followed me. "I am. I won't even say goodbye. He won't notice." I turned, looked through the glass. He was at the bar laughing with his friends. Free, joyful, light, without me. "Everything is as it should be," I said quietly. "I'm sorry about what happened. How he treated you. It was terrible. Everything has fallen into place." I walked to the bus stop. No music, no phone calls. In my head, just one thought that night. I would write a letter. Not to him, but to myself. The most important letter of my life. At home, it was quiet. I took off the dress, carefully, like removing something foreign. I hung it in the closet. In the kitchen, cold tea, the lamp on. I sat at the table, opened my laptop, and just one window. A new email. Recipient, Richard. At first, there were no words, just silence. And then, as if from the depths, they emerged. "Richard, I'm not writing to you in anger or resentment. I'm writing with understanding. Thank you for making everything clear at your wedding. Not with hints or halftones, but directly, honestly. You've made me understand where I stand. You said I'm used to eating life's leftovers, and you're right. I am used to leftovers. Leftovers of your attention. Leftovers of your time. Leftovers of gratitude, when you happen to remember. Leftovers of love that you've learned to dole out so as not to offend anyone but also not to let anyone too close. You've always known I'm here, that I'll endure, that I'll understand, that I'll forgive. You never thought I might leave, but I am leaving, not with hysteria, not with scandal, but forever and in peace. From today, I'm cutting off all support. The $500 you received in your account each month isn't inheritance. It's my overtime, my economizing, my unmedicined illnesses, my unworn shoes. I'm canceling the insurance policy where you were the beneficiary. I'm canceling the credit card you used in emergencies, including your vacation in Florida and your wedding flowers. And most importantly, I'm selling the house. The one you thought was already yours. You thought I would leave it to you by birthright, but being born a son doesn't mean being a person who can be trusted with the memory of these walls and the pain. This house is mine. I preserved it, spent sleepless nights when you were sick, celebrated every New Year alone after the divorce, cleaned it, repaired it, maintained it. Now I'm selling it because I want to live, not wait. You often asked why I never remarried after your father. Because I was busy. I was building your life. The price was that I forgot my own. I thought if I gave you everything, you would love me not for my role but as a person. I was wrong. You grew accustomed to receiving without noticing. Accustomed to mom being the background, the wall, the back that supports. That back no longer exists. This isn't a threat. It's not manipulation. It's information. You're a grown man, you're married, you have a family, status, career. Now your life is entirely yours, with bills, rent, needs, and I am now my own, with travels, with breakfast on the terrace, with books, with a silence where there is no pain. You will remain my son by blood, but I will no longer be your bank, your handkerchief, your shadow and your background. Mom, or better, Susan. I read the letter 3 times. No shouting, no complaints, no please call me, just the unvarnished truth. At 3:42 in the morning, I pressed send. No music, just the click of the mouse, and silence. In the morning, I contacted a real estate agent, called work, requested vacation time, took out a map, and began marking cities I had never been to, and in my head just one thought. I no longer live on leftovers. Now the main part begins. The house paperwork took less time than I expected. The real estate agent turned out to be attentive, polite. Excellent neighborhood, he said. Infrastructure nearby, the park 2 stops away. They'll give you good money for it. I nodded silently. I didn't tell him how I mopped this floor at 2 in the morning when Richard left home for the first time. I didn't tell him how I slept on the kitchen floor because there was a fever in the children's room, and I was afraid to go away. This house remembered everything, but I decided to forget. Within a week, 3 offers appeared. In 2 weeks, I chose one, cash, 15% above market. The buyers, a young couple with a child, like James and I once were. Only maybe they'll fare better. $35,000. A sum I had never even imagined before. But it didn't frighten me, because for the first time in my life, I didn't have a plan for someone else. The day of the closing, I arrived at the office. Papers, signatures, forms. I wasn't signing documents. I was signing my freedom, mine, no one else's. After signing, I passed by the house, no longer mine. On the porch, a little girl in a pink coat was playing with a ball. Her mother was drying her hands by the entrance. I stood watching. I felt no nostalgia for the curtains, nor the walls, nor the bathroom tiles I had replaced myself. I felt no nostalgia because they were no longer mine, like everything I had once held onto for Richard. The phone, the one with the new number, remained silent. 2 weeks passed. No letters, no calls, no attempts. I was beginning to think all would be silence, but one evening, a knock at the door. Through the peephole, Jennifer, impeccable as always, tailored coat, fine earrings, delicate makeup. I opened the door. Good evening, Susan. Can we talk? We? No. You perhaps. She entered, looked around, not with contempt but not with warmth either. I'll make coffee, I said. Just instant. Everything here is simple. She sat at the table behaving as if she were in a negotiating room. I didn't know how dependent Richard was on you. He didn't know himself. He was used to everything just being there. Money, mother, when needed she gives, when not, she doesn't bother. I thought he had his own savings. He said he had parents, but in reality, he only had you. Pause. Silence. I didn't help her speak. Let her continue on her own if she had come. It's difficult for us now. We've moved out of the apartment, living with my parents. I'm working on 2 projects. He's stressed. And what do I have to do with that? You're his mother. Not anymore. Jennifer looked at me carefully, as if searching for a crack. What if he apologizes? No. What if he really means it? It's too late. Then what do you want? I stood up, put the cup in the sink. Nothing. That's the main thing. I no longer want anything from him. Not words, not gratitude, not attempts. I'm not offended. I'm free. She tensed, pressed her lips, then abruptly stood up. You're getting revenge, because your life didn't work out. No. I've simply stopped giving it away to others. After she left, I finished packing. 2 suitcases, 1 backpack, a couple of books, documents, the rest I sold, gave away or threw out. The next morning, I left for a city where no one knew me, where they didn't call me Richard's mom, where I could be simply Susan, woman, person, individual. I rented an apartment near the river in a small coastal town in Maine. Small kitchen, window overlooking the pines. I found a job at a bookstore. Sales clerk, 4 days a week, no stress, no office uniform. The owner, Rita, an older woman, said, "You have a calm look. We like that here." Books aren't sold with voice, they're sold with eyes. I stayed, and for the first time in decades, I understood that life hadn't ended. It had begun. A little over a month passed. I settled into a routine. In the morning, coffee on the windowsill. During the day, books, conversations with occasional customers. In the evening, walks along the waterfront, where it smelled of moisture and spring. My phone remained silent, and that silence had become not a concern but a comfort. It meant I wasn't needed, that I had been left in peace, that life went on without me. And that, I discovered, was also freedom. But one day, Rita approached me behind the counter. In her hand, a piece of paper. Someone called, left a number, said he's your son. I looked at the numbers, then at her. Thank you. Don't you want to call him back? No. That evening, I threw away the paper. Calmly, without trembling, without expectation. But 3 days later, he came in person. I was arranging new books in the display. I looked up and saw him at the entrance. Richard, my son, so different. Thin, lost gaze, wrinkled clothes, overgrown hair, dry lips. He didn't look bad. He looked lost. He stood like a child coming to pick up his mother after work. I didn't rush to him, didn't call out, didn't smile. I simply approached. Hello, Richard. Mom, he said, this word so softly, as if afraid it would burn him. I've been looking for you, he mumbled. What for? He lowered his eyes. Pause. Can we talk somewhere else? After work? You'll have 1 hour at the cafe next door. He ordered 2 coffees. Mine with foam, as I used to like it. I didn't touch it. You look good, he said. Really good. And I feel good. I want to apologize for everything. I remained silent. He continued. For the wedding, for humiliating you, for using you all these years. I was blind. I realized. He shuddered. No, it's not just because the money ran out. I miss you. I understand that I'm losing you. You were always there. Precisely. I was always there, even when I wasn't noticed. I want to fix everything, build our relationship anew. Maybe start with a meal, a walk. I'm willing. You're willing because you feel bad? I'm not an emergency service. He fell silent, staring at his cup. I know I acted terribly. I understand I hurt you. But I'm still your son. No, you're my biological son, but in essence, no. For years you saw me as a function, as a mother, like a light bulb. Shines well, burns out, thrown away. He cried, silently, contained. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I looked at him and felt nothing. No pity, no anger, no desire to comfort him. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to get it all back. There's no way. But you're my mother. I'm no longer a mother, Richard. I'm a woman who lived 30 years denying herself everything so you could advance. Now I want to advance myself. He sobbed. I miss you. No, Richard. You miss the comfort how everything was, the person who pulled you along. But not me, because you never saw me. I'll change. I'll be different. I no longer need that. I hold no grudge. I simply no longer wait. No calls, no words, no apologies. I'm at peace. I stood up. Thank you for coming, but the conversation is over. I'm not offended. I've let you go. He remained seated. I walked toward the river slowly, calmly, and in that moment, I understood. Finally, I'm living not as a mother, not as a helper, not as a shadow. I'm living as a woman who has stopped being someone else's and has become herself. Spring in Maine came slowly. First in the drops falling from the windowsill, then in the soft sun on the old cobblestones, and later in the children who started playing ball again on the waterfront. Each morning I prepared tea, took out a notebook, and wrote, Today is a day without rush, without the need to be needed. The bookstore lived its own life. People came for notebooks, gave me chocolates, brought old books. I became the local woman from the shop, The one who always keeps quiet but who, for some reason, makes everything feel warmer. One day in May, Rita handed me an envelope. Mail in your name. No return address but childish handwriting. I looked at the inscription. Crooked, with some errors but careful. Grandma Susan? Inside, a letter on regular notebook paper. Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm 6 years old. Daddy says you used to make beautiful notebooks, and Mommy says you're very pretty. I like to draw. Can I have a notebook? I'll draw something for you too. I really want to meet you. Emily, Richard and Jennifer's daughter. I reread these lines, holding the sheet with both hands. There were no reproaches, no hints, no manipulation. Just a childish "can I be close?" The next day, I made her a notebook. Light cover with a heart cut out of fabric, thick paper inside, pages with quotes about summer and kindness. I wrapped it in craft paper, attached a note. Draw whatever you want. The world becomes kinder when your drawings appear. I sent it to the address indicated in the letter, without additional words, without expecting a response. A week later, an envelope arrived. Inside, a drawing. A girl and a woman standing in front of mountains, holding a notebook in their hands. Signed, "This is us, someday." I hung the drawing in my workshop. Next to it I wrote, "Sometimes it's enough for someone to simply want to draw you beside them." I didn't call Richard, didn't write to Jennifer, didn't ask if she knew Emily had sent the letter. It was their home, their life, their story, and I had mine, without resentment, without past roles, just with respect for myself. And one morning, standing by the open window with a cup of tea, I caught myself thinking, finally, I live in a world where nothing asks me to disappear for someone else. And in that is all the happiness, quiet, warm, authentic. Summer came unnoticed. First with the smell of heated pines on the trail, then with open windows and curtains swaying in the breeze, and then with the fact that I stopped counting the days. I no longer waited for letters, didn't check the phone, didn't look to see if anyone had checked my messaging apps. Emily sent another drawing, a grandmother with a cake, and beside her, a cat with a crown. "This is us," she wrote. "When will I come? I want to bake too." I didn't know if she would come. I didn't know if they would let her. I didn't know if she would want to, but for the first time in many years, I wasn't afraid of not knowing, because now I had enough inner peace not to try to control every step. The bookstore became a quiet place for people tired of talking. Mothers with children came, teachers, lonely men with eyes full of silence. "It's like being in a tea house," a woman who was buying her 5th notebook once said. "Not an extra word, just what's important." I nodded. I've simply removed everything that prevented breathing. Sometimes I walked until late at night along the waterfront, passing old wooden houses, past gazebos where teenagers played guitar. I would sit on a bench, take out my thermos, and silently watch the water. I didn't remember, didn't fantasize, I simply was. One day, a young woman was waiting at the entrance to the bookstore, nervous, with a drawing in hand. "My mother died," she began, stumbling over her words. "I found her diary. She had a notebook from you. I just wanted someone to fix it." I took the notebook, old, with a soft cover, with notes about life, dreams, disappointments. I said nothing, simply opened it carefully, cut the cover, and began to rebind it. When I handed it to her, the young woman hugged me. "Thank you." In it she was authentic, only there. And then I understood. I don't make notebooks. I simply give people the right to be with themselves, even if only on paper. One day, Emily sent me a voice message. "Grandma, I've had an idea. When I grow up, I'll make books like yours, but with drawings. We'll be together in the bookstore." Okay? I pressed play twice. Not because I hadn't understood, but because it had been a long time since anyone had talked to me about a future together. I don't know if Richard will return. I don't know if he'll ever ask how I am. But I know one thing, if he ever shows up at the bookstore, I'll tell him, everything here is already sorted out. Everything that could be taken has been taken. Only what I need remains. Autumn returned to the city imperceptibly. First in the leaves, a yellow edge, then the smell of moisture, then the slight clicking of the wind, as if someone invisible was carefully turning the pages of the calendar. I lived unhurriedly, baked apple pies, removed dry leaves from the windowsill, changed the notebooks in the display. Now the covers had warm tones, chestnut ribbons. The world had become mine. Not foreign, not obligatory, simply mine. One morning I found a letter in my mailbox. Pink envelope, more careful handwriting than before. Inside, a handmade card. On it, a store at the door, a woman with a green cape and a girl with a backpack. Grandma, I'm coming for vacation. Mommy says if you don't mind. Daddy doesn't say anything, but I'm coming anyway because I really want to and I'm already 8 years old. I know how to bake and read, and keep secrets. I love you, Emily. I didn't cry, didn't smile, just sat by the window with this letter and thought, this is it. This has arrived, not as revenge, not as forgiveness, but as something new. I took a notebook, the one I had kept for myself but never filled. I opened the first page and wrote, if someone ever asks how the second life begins, I'll answer that. It's from the moment when for the first time you weren't afraid to open a letter. And there's no pain in it, just someone who simply wants to be close, without conditions, without demands, simply close. Emily arrived in late October. She was on the platform with her bright jacket, hugging her backpack, alongside Margaret, Jennifer's mother. Richard wasn't with them. She ran to me immediately. Grandma, hello! I was so afraid you'd change your mind. I haven't changed my mind. I brought you drawings and jam and new words. I learned the word infinity. It's you. I knelt down and hugged her, not as a grandmother, not as a victim, but as a person who has understood that they are no longer alone. That night, we drank hot chocolate. She leafed through my old notebooks, asking, who wrote this? Why is there a tear here? Can I write too? I nodded, and at some point, watching her sitting on the floor drawing, I thought, she will remember me not as the one who endured, but as the one who once chose to live. Life didn't give me everything I wanted, but it gave me the essentials, my name, my place, and someone who asks nothing except that I be. And perhaps that's enough.